Well, hello, students, and welcome to our next chapter in our weekly youth messages. We are in our final week of Habakkuk. And so, just a little recap so far where we've been. In chapter 1 of Habakkuk, Habakkuk is wrestling with some profound questions, most specifically, why, God, are these bad things happening to us? And the truth is, you see this conversation between Habakkuk and God responds to that question, a question we ask or even asking in our current situation. God responds to Habakkuk and says, honestly, things are going to get worse. You're going to have to endure this difficult season. And, Habakkuk even responds again saying, well, this isn't fair. This doesn't make sense. But he says, I'm going to wait and see. And so we kind of left chapter 1 with the challenge to do two things. First one, to Habakkuk our questions, or to wrestle and embrace our tough questions. And so I invited you to do that, to be thinking about what questions are you wrestling with that you need to continue to embrace, right? And then the second thing is this, to keep watch, to be intentionally looking for what God is doing in our midst. And so that's how chapter 1 ended. And then last week, Ashley Overlander did an amazing job unpacking chapter 2 with us. And in a sense, chapter 2 is that waiting period. How do you endure that season of waiting for God to show up? And so we have to be patient. We have to learn that in a culture where we struggle to be patient. And so how do you do that? It all comes down to changing our perspective. Remember, we've said week 1 and week 2, and I'll say it again now, if you can't change your situation, which let's be honest, we can't right now. If you can't change your situation, change your perspective. Because when you change your perspective, the way you endure and experience your situation is so much easier, so much more positive if you can change your perspective. And so Ashley gave you this really great tool on how to change your perspective when you're wrestling with your problem. And so she gave you those 3 words, but the Lord. Right? So she, a couple of ideas she gave out there. I'm feeling alone, but the Lord is with me. We're out of toilet paper and the stores are empty, but the Lord will provide. Learning to do school online is difficult and scary, but the Lord will guide me through it. Those 3 words are so profound. Add it to our wrestling with our situation, and it helps us begin to see not only change our perspective on it, but it begins to invite us to trust in God. And so as we turn our attention now to chapter 3, the final chapter, here's a question that I want you to be thinking about that will help you begin to see where we're going with Habakkuk's final chapter. And so the question is this. I invite you to think back to a time when you had to accept that God was doing something that you didn't like in your life. You think about what was going on, and the question becomes, what happened that finally brought you to a place of accepting that direction? Was it because you had absolutely no control anyways, and so you just trusted that God was with you? Are you still maybe wrestling with that place? But what brings you to that place of accepting this direction of something you don't like? So think about that, and we're going to encounter how Habakkuk actually got to this place of accepting God's plan. And so this final chapter, chapter 3 of Habakkuk, is this beautiful prayer, asking God, in a sense, to replace the hopelessness in our lives with this joy that comes from being in this relationship with God. And throughout this entire chapter, I just want to highlight 4 or 5 verses in particular that jump out to me as very important for us to take to home, given our situation. And so the first one is actually verse 2 of chapter 3, which says this: Lord, I have heard of your fame. I stand in awe of your deeds. Repeat them in our day. In our time, make them known. In wrath, remember mercy. And then right after that, he goes into this long 14, 15 verses of describing things that God had done, and mostly recounting events from the Exodus. Remember that famous Exodus story? He's describing these events, and I believe that this is actually profound, a very important part of the journey to getting into this place of navigating difficult seasons with patience, and accepting that we have to endure a situation we can't. And it is remembering what God has done. Remember what God has done in your past, because that is the key to remembering that He is with you in your present and in your future, that God is in control, that we can trust God by remembering what He's already done. And so let me pause and invite you to think about that. What is maybe one or two of your favorite God memories from your past story? Did God show up in your life while on a trip at Chick, or on a missions trip, or while you were gathered together with some friends and God revealed something to you? Or was it at camp? Or maybe you were out in the woods and just had this God-inspiring aha moment. Like, what are the moments where God showed up and they're your favorite moments, the stories you love to tell about God in your life? For me, one of my big family moments was when I was in 10th grade. And I remember that season of life well because my dad found out he had a tumor. He lost his job, and our family car broke down, all within a month of each other. That was a very difficult season of life for our family, but I remember how God provided our family with funds to get through that month. He helped us provide a way for the car to get fixed at no cost because of a generous person. My dad found a new job being hired knowing that he had cancer, and they said, we don't care about that, and we'll help you navigate that season, whatever that looks like. And then it turns out the tumor was benign. He didn't have cancer, so it was a simple surgery and he was done. All of that was a season for our family that we will never forget, about how God provided and was with us during that. And now here's why remembering these kind of stories matter. If you were to jump down to verse 16, he gives a little emotion, and he says, I heard and my heart pounded. My lips quivered at the sound. Decay crept in my bones and my legs trembled, right? You feel that sense of the situation we have to endure is not good. I'm concerned, I'm anxious, I'm worried, I'm, all those emotions in that. But then he says this, yet I will wait patiently for the day of calamity. Not just waiting patiently for the Lord to respond, but now waiting patiently for this situation to be at its climax, for the situation to continue to grow. I will wait patiently for this to happen. And I truly believe that these stories that we remember matter, because remembering what God has done leads us to trusting in God and His plan for our situation and future. Right? Habakkuk's journey of wrestling with his questions led him to trusting in God in this moment and actually being able to patiently endure what they were about to go through. This Babylon, they were about to go into exile, and Babylon isn't going to come actually for another 20 years. So he had to sit with this feeling for another 20 years, but he was able to do it patiently. He was able to get through it. And because of this journey deepened his faith. It's been fun to kind of interview a few of you as we do these Friday interviews, because many of you have shared with me about how you actually see this season deepening your faith, because you're thrown into the midst of this difficult situation and your life is completely turned upside down, and you find yourself getting new rhythms. And you find yourself experiencing God in different ways. And so how maybe do you see your faith deepening during this difficult season, during this quarantine, during this pandemic? Maybe God is doing something in your life that you're just now beginning to realize. Here's how his prophecy ends. Habakkuk ends it by saying this. Very profound words, by the way. Though the fig tree does not bud, and there are no grapes on the vine, and though the olive crops fail and the fields produce no food, though there is no sheep in the pen and no cattle in the stalls, you can kind of get the sense of all these situations of just horrible experiences, especially if you're a farmer, you get the reality of these things. Even though all those things have happened, I will rejoice in the Lord, and I will be joyful in God my Savior. The Lord is my strength. Just a great way to end this chapter. You can see Habakkuk's sense of understanding his trust in the Lord and how the Lord is his strength and he is going to rejoice in these circumstances, right? I mean, this isn't the only time the Bible talks about that. Like Philippians 4 says, rejoice in the Lord always. I say again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, whether it be good, whether it be bad, whether you are excited or you're terrified, in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, not and thanksgiving, but with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And God promises you that his peace will guard your hearts and minds. And then in 1 Thessalonians 5, it says, rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, right? And so as we kind of wrap up this journey of Habakkuk, today I want to challenge you to share essentially two things. Put this into your daily rhythm. The two things I want you to share. First one, share a story of what God has done for you or your family. Like, remember these stories of your family's past. And if you don't have any personally, ask people. Like, invite others, maybe your friends or your parents. Like, invite them to share these stories that maybe you've never heard before, but are really profound, and maybe explain why these things matter for your family. But every day, recall or think about one story of where God showed up in your life, your favorite moments of God, or even the moments where it was a difficult season, but you saw God in the midst of that. So share a story, but then every day, share one thing that you are thankful to the Lord for. One thing, because again, as you become grateful for things, it changes your perspective, which is the whole part of this journey of how do we endure a difficult season. We need to change our perspective. And in addition to, but the Lord, is the idea of what can I be grateful for? I'm grateful for a house. I'm grateful for the fact that our family still has a paycheck. I'm grateful for toilet paper, right? Every day, think of one new thing that you can be grateful for. And my prayer is that we all will, during this very difficult time, not only be able to endure it, but to actually deepen our faith like Habakkuk. And so blessings to you all again, and we will see you right back here next week at 6 p.m.